Hello lovelies, welcome to another online tutorial with Jenie Concept. Thank you so much for clicking in, and in today's tutorial I'll be learning how to make this gathered or pleated turban cap which has multi bows and an arrow design on it. If you are new to this channel, thank you for stopping by. Please, before leaving, kindly do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also don't forget to click on the bell icon. Now, in today's tutorial, the materials used include scuba fabric, satin fabric, lace fabric, bias, your wadding or your stay, your scissors, your gum, your trimming, your needle and thread, as well as your measuring tape. Starting this tutorial, first thing is to ensure that you have your turban base ready. Now, making use of this pleated or gathered turban cap. In place of it, you can make use of any other turban cap. It could be your V-shaped band, your pleated turban cap, or your normal round band turban cap. So whichever one you are working with, first ensure that you have it all done, and then we'll now move to the design proper. We'll be starting with how to make the gathered or pleated turban cap, and thereafter we'll make the multiple design on it. I have my fabric cut out. Then for the base, I'm working with 26 inches for the head circumference by 20 inches for the width. So the measurement for my fabric for the base is 26 inches for the head circumference, 20 inches for the width. The head circumference is also the length, and it is drawn across the more stretchy parts of the fabric. Then for my band, I'm using 22 inches for the length, which is the head circumference, and the width is 4.5 inches. Now, having done that, I'm going to get the fabric for my base, and we're going to be marking it, of which I already did before now, but I'll go on to illustrate how it is to be done. Now, coming to the pleats that is to be on the fabric, I don't know if you can see my lines, although they are faint, but I can see them properly. You first of all have to decide what the interval or the space or allowance between each marked line should be. For me, I'm using 1.5 inches, of which you can try to use either 1 inch or 2 inches, depends on your preference. But for me, I'm using 1.5 inches. And then we'll get the measuring tape, mark out one, measure and mark out 1.5 inches on your fabric. Measure and mark out. Measure and mark out. Measure and mark out. And after doing that, you get your ruler and use it to mark out the already marked out lines. And that is what you do from the top of the fabric till you get to the end of the fabric. But then another option that is faster and easier is to get a ruler which is the same measurement as your interval. So let's say, for instance, this ruler which I have here is about 1.5 inches for the width, which is the same as the measurement I want to use. So all I have to do is to get my ruler, place it down this way, and then go ahead and then start marking out my lines without having to use my measuring tape to mark out the lines. This is much more faster and easier. So if you want to use 1 inch, get a ruler that is 1 inch wide. If you want to use 2 inches, get a ruler that is 2 inches wide. So that is how to go about that. Now, after marking your fabric with your lines, we'll go ahead to sew. Now, when it comes to sewing, you pick each marked line, fold it down, and sew from one end of the fabric to the other. Pick the other marked line, sew it down from one end of the fabric to the other, in that order until you have sewn down the entire fabric. Please kindly note that your markings should be on the wrong side of your fabric, especially if you are working with a fabric that has a wrong side and a fine side. So I'm going to go back to sew down, and after sewing, I'll get. So right here I have my fabric. I'm done sewing along the marked lines. This is the wrong side of my fabric, and this is the right side. So what I'll be doing next is that I will get my fabric, fold it into 2 equal halves, and then make a notch at the middle. So that is done. I'll get the fabric for my band also, and then fold into two as well, and also make a notch at the middle on both sides. Now, having done that, I'll get the fabric for the base, place on my working surface, and then I'm going to place it with the fine side facing me. Meanwhile, I will get my band and then fold it into two equal halves with the wrong side inside and the fine side outside. And then I'm going to place it at the middle, okay? Ensure that the middle of your fabric for the base and the middle of your fabric where you notched on your band aligns together. And then as soon as that is done, I'm going to place this on my sewing machine and I'll be stitching it down from this end to this end. Now, if you observe carefully, you see that there's a little bit of allowance at this edge and also another allowance at this edge. That is what is going to give it the backdrop effect. So I'm going to stitch this, and as soon as I'm done, okay, I have my fabric already sewn. As you can see, I have the band added to the fabric. This is the fine side and this is the wrong side. As soon as you are done with this, we'll go ahead to fold our fabric into two equal halves to enable us to locate the middle of the fabric, and then we'll mark it. So if you look carefully at my fabric, you'll see that I've made a mark across the middle of the fabric. So that is it. So we'll now make the gathers at the middle of the cap. To do that, I have my needle and thread already doubled and knotted at the end, and I'll start by passing it in from the wrong side of the turban cap, and I'll take it out. Now, whatever you are working on, ensure that it is along the middle of this fabric on the marked line which you have drawn earlier. So this is what we'll do. As soon as it's out from the wrong side of the turban cap, you can see where it's coming from at the edge of the band. I'll go ahead to pick this first pleat and then fold it into two, or pick the pleat, fold it into two, and pass my needle and thread in. So that is it. So as soon as it's out, I'll continue in the same order. I'll keep picking each pleat and then passing my needle and thread through it at the middle. Pick the next pleat, pass my needle and thread through it, pick it again, fold it into two, and then pass my needle and thread through it in that order until I get to the edge. Now, whatever I'm doing, I'm not getting to this last pleat here, this last line here. I'm stopping at the second to the last pleat, because this last pleat is going to be for sewing. So I'm stopping at this second to the last pleat. I'm not working on this very last one. I've made my gathers at the middle of the fabric and I've gotten to the end, so I have this last pleat free. I'll put my fabric and then go back to secure my thread and cut off the excess thread. So this is mine. I'm done with securing my thread, and then I'll go ahead to fold my cap into two equal halves this way, and I'm going to be stitching this down. So this is how the stitching is going to be done. I will stitch on the band this way. After stitching it, I'll stitch it down, take it down this way again, I'll stitch it to this end, then stitch it down to this very end, and from this end, when I get to this end, I'll stitch it down to this very end here. So right here, I have my turban cap already sewn. I've sewn down this edge, and then I extended it down to this very end, and from this end I also extended it down to this end. So what we'll be doing next is that we'll be making the running stitch at the edge of the fabric in order to also form gathers at the back to give us that turban cap look. Now my running stitch is coming immediately after the band. I'm starting from here and I'm making it down to this very end. So I'll just start by passing my needle and thread in and out of my fabric until I get to the end. Then I'll go back, secure the excess thread, and then get back. So this is it, and I'm turning my fabric inside out. I have my gathered or pleated turban cap here. This is the front view, and then this is the back view. So this is all to it. So set this aside while we work on the design, which will be attached to our turban. For my design, I have my fabric cut out already, and I'm making use of satin fabric for this. The full length of the fabric is 25 inches, and I have it in 3 places. The length is 25 inches and the width is 6.5 inches. 25 inches by 6.5 inches, and I had it cut out in 3 places. That is 3 different pieces of fabric. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to get each piece of fabric and then fold it into 2. Please, while folding into 2, the front side of the fabric will be inside and the wrong side of the fabric will be outside facing you, and then I'm going to sew from one end down to the other end, and I'll repeat the same thing for the other piece of fabric. And then after sewing, I will turn my fabric inside out and get back. These are all 3 pieces of my fabric. I've finished sewing and I've turned it inside out. So now I will take it down to my ironing table and iron to straighten out. While working with satin fabric, it is very essential that after each step you iron to straighten the fabric out so that it will be easier to work with. But then due to lack of electricity, I'll have to skip that part until later on. Then for the next step, we'll be working with our crinoline. So this is it. It is 3 inches wide, and then I'm going to be passing my crinoline inside my fabric. So I have to pass it in until it comes out at the other end. I will repeat this same procedure for the other piece of fabric as well. So this is what I get, how it looks like. And then on this end, I'm going to cut off the excess crinoline. So as soon as I'm done, I get this. Now please note that in place of crinoline, you can as well make use of your wadding or your gum stay, whichever is okay or whichever suits you best. Now, and then you can as well decide to double your crinoline in your fabric in order to give it more effect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place these 2 ends together and I'm going to be tacking it down. Yes, I will tack it and repeat for the other 2 pieces of fabric which I have, and I will get back. It's my work. As you can see, I folded into 2 and I've sewn, and after that I turned it down to this other part. So this is how I have it. Now for these 2, please ensure that the sewn part is at the middle. I'm going to be making a stitch through it in order to join it together as sewn. That is like something like having 2 designs in one, forming like a slant form. So this is it, and then starting from this point, I'll just pass my needle and thread and make a running stitch through it. Okay, so I have it this way. Then I'll also get the second one and then pass my needle and thread through it and continue with the running stitch. So I'm going to pull this tight to secure it. Now I can decide to further wrap it down with my needle and thread to help me hold it in place properly. So as soon as I'm done wrapping my thread around it, I'll get something like this, and then I'm going to secure it by tying it together, and I'll cut off the excess. So you see the design, like I said, it's like 2-in-1. It's a 2-in-1 bow, and that's what I wanted to achieve. So I haven't done this. I'm going to set this aside. Remember, we still have one more piece left. We'll get to where it will be needed. So yeah, I have my pattern paper, that is my cardboard paper, or any other piece of paper you want to work with. I want to first of all draft out the pattern we're going to be using for our design, and then I have my measuring tape also. Now the length I'm going to be using is 18 inches, so I will measure out 18 inches and mark. So this is it. I have 18 inches. And then for the width, I'm going to be using 6 inches. So I will now mark out 6 inches. And I'll get my scissors to cut this out. Now half of 18 inches is 9 inches. So I'm going to take down the measurement. 9 inches. Now from the 9-inch mark, I'll be measuring out half an inch to the top, and also another half an inch below it. And I get this. Now I need to get the middle of this. That's 3 inches mark. You know we are making use of 6 inches, so 3 inches is going to be the middle point, and I'm going to mark it out. Please just try to follow me. So I have it this way. Now I'm going to be taking, remember this is the 9-inch mark, and this is half an inch, half an inch. This is 3 inches each. Now from this half an inch down to the end, I have about 8.5 inches. So I will mark the middle of it, which is about 4.25 or 4.3. So this is it. Now it's time to draw my shape, and then from this end I'll just draw a straight line down, like a V shape, and then draw a straight line down. So this is it. And then I have to curve this part this way, then also curve this part this way. So I have to make sure that they are similar, the sides are similar. I don't know if you get what I did. After making this triangle, I curved this end and I curved this end. Then getting very close to this half an inch mark before the main 9 inches mark, I then made this straight line. So this is how I got my pattern. And then I'm going to fold this down from the 9-inch mark. Try it is well placed. And I'm going to be tracing this out this way. So rather than doing this, you can try any other means which will be easier for you, but this method works very well for me and I'm used to it. So at the end of the day, this is what I get as my pattern. And then you are going to get your breast pad and draw this out if you are using breast pad, or you can make use of cinnamon and then place on your cinnamon and then cut it out. So this is the one I cut out earlier. As you can see, although it's not as wide as this pattern which I have here, for this I made use of 6 inches, and then for this I have about 5 inches or 4 point. And for the breast part I use about 4.5 to 5 inches for the width. Okay, and the length I use 19 inches because of what I want to get. So this is it. And then to continue, like I said earlier, you can use your drafted out pattern. You can now place it either on your cinnamon or on your breast pad or whatever you want to use. You can now place it and then draw it out and cut it out. So that is that. Having done that, I'm going to be covering this up with my fabric, that is my satin fabric, and also my lace fabric. And I'm going to get my gum and apply on it. Please, rather than using gum, you can just stitch once, but when I'm going to be stitching, that should be when I'll be adding my bias to tape the edge. That is when I'll be stitching. So this is it, and I'm going to glue this down. And for the back also, I'm going to apply gum and glue it down. Now this is my fabric, and I finished covering the wording, the breast pad with my fabric. Okay, I had to join at this point because I did not have enough fabric to cover it up, so I had to make use of the little leftovers that I have. But please, if you are making for a client, please make sure it is neater than this, neater than what I have, and it comes out where do not manage your fabric when working for your client, so that you can have good recommendations at the end of the day. And then this is the back view, and this is the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my lace fabric. You know it's rough, but my lace fabric is going to be enough, more than enough, and I'm going to be covering this up with my lace fabric. So I'm just going to place gum and glue this down, then trim it to get the shape, and as soon as I'm done, I'll get back. Covering with my lace fabric, I've trimmed off the excess. This is the back view. Now I'm not going to end there because the edge is rough. The edge is rough because of my trimming. I have to tape the end using my bias tape. So I have my bias tape here, and then all I have to do is to place it at this edge, and then I'm going to stitch it down all through until I get to this other side. I'll take it around until I get to this other side. Or you can as well decide to use your fabric, either your lace fabric or your satin fabric, and then fold it in to give you that bias shape, and then use it to tape the ends this way. Whichever you prefer, it's very much okay. So this is my work. As you can see, it's been covered. Like, you won't even have the slightest idea that I made use of breast pad, and then I had to make use of patches of my satin fabric to cover it. It's now neatly done. So this is it. Now remember the 2-bow design which we worked, the 3-bow design which we worked on earlier, these two as one, and then this third piece, and then we also have this should I say arrow design, and then we're going to couple all three together to give us the main design. But before then, we are going to be needing a loop which we are going to be using to couple these pieces together. And for my loop fabric, I have 8 inches by 6 inches. You can also make use of 8 inches by 5 inches. I'm using my lace fabric, but then you can also use your satin fabric in place. So I'm going to fold it into two. The fine side will be facing each other. That is, the fine side will be inside and the wrong side will be outside facing me. And then I'm going to sew down. And after sewing, I will turn it inside out and get back. Turning my fabric inside out, this is what I have, and I've placed it as shown with the sewn part at the middle. So I'm going to keep it aside. Now back to coupling our design. Get the first 2 in one bow, place this way. Get your breast part that has already been covered and then place at the middle of your work. And then finally get the last bow, fold this part, should be at the middle, and then place this way. So this is how our design is going to be. And then this is going to take me a lot of effort and a lot of time. I don't want to use glue gun and candle gum to hold everything in place. Instead, I want to tack it down with my needle and thread. So I'm going to use my needle and thread. I can start by joining these two, that is at the middle, or I can, as well, after stitching, still use my gum to hold it in place. That is more preferable. And then after that, I have to find a way I have to join it to these two at the back. So as soon as we're done with that, we'll get our loop fabric and then use it to wrap this at the middle, and then our design will have been set in place. So I'm now going to tack this offline, that is off camera, and then I'll get back to show us how it looks like before we continue with the final step. So this is the first one. I've joined these two together. I actually discovered that I could use my sewing machine to join it, and I've done that without using gum. So what is left for me now is to use my needle and thread to tack this down to those 2 in one bow at the back. So I'm done sewing everything down in place, and then this is it. I stitched all through. So I'll get my loop fabric, and like I said earlier, the sewn part should be at the middle, and then place on your work this way. So I'm going to be stitching this at the back, and then I'll get back. It's my work, and I've finished sewing. I'm going to cut off the excess at this point, and then I have to flip, because of this sewn part here, I have to take this part back here, and I have to turn this to the other side. Finally, this is what I get for my work. I've coupled down everything in place. This is the front view. You can see the band, and then see the sewn part here at the back, and then this is the back view. This is how my work looks like. So I have to attach this down to my turban base. So then get your turban cap or your turban base, just like I have here, but first of all, try fitting it on your dummy head on your head, both the design and the cap, so that you get the position or how you want your design to be. And then if you want to use gum, you can use gum, but even while using your candle gum and glue gun to glue this down to your work, to your base, you still have to use your needle and thread to tack it down a bit so that it can be very, very secure. Or better still, you can try making it detachable by getting a headband. Okay, because of the color of the, you can wrap the headband with your fabric and then attach it down on your design so that it can also be in form of a fascinator, and then the Alice band can be worn on the turban cap or the turban base. That is another option. So let me just, for illustration's sake, so I can get it, I'm just going to pass this here, and then I'm going to place everything on my dummy head to show us how it looks like. I have my turban cap on my dummy head, and then I'm going to place my design on it. Please, I want you to get that the way I'm using my Alice band is not tight, so it's, you have to tack it down if you're using Alice band. If not, tack down to your base so that it can be tight. So after everything, this is how the design will look like. This is the front view, and then this is the side view, while the back view will look this way. So this is all that there is to this design. Now, in place of your wording and your lace fabric, you can as well make use of your cinnamon to achieve that arrow design, and it will come out more beautiful. So this brings us to the end of today's tutorial. I hope you got value. Please don't forget to like, to share, and to leave a comment in the comment section. Do well to follow us on our social media platforms. We're on Facebook and on Instagram as JenieConcept. Thank you, and see you in our next tutorial.